Okay, welcome to Cleveland Heights City Council Committee of the Whole. It's October 7th, 2024. At 6 p.m., Maddie, would you call the roll?
Cobb.
Present.
Huda.
Present.
Larson.
Here.
Petrus.
Here.
Maddox.
Here.
Russell. Posh.
Here. All right.
She's on Zoom.
I could hear that. I'd like to entertain a motion to move into executive session.
Mr. President, I move that we go into executive session to consider confidential information related to the marketing plans, specific business strategy, production techniques, trade secrets, or personal financial statements of an applicant for economic development assistance or to negotiations with other political subdivisions respecting requests for economic development assistance as necessary to protect the interests of the applicant or the possible investment or expenditure of public funds to be made in connection with the economic development project and to consider the lease or sale of city-owned real property.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right.
Cobb.
Aye.
Huda.
Aye.
Petrus.
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Maddox.
Aye.
Posh.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we are back from executive session and we're going to move on to legislative review. All right, so we have a few items for first reading for consideration for adoption. 187 is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Southeastern Equipment for the acquisition of a Pace Model 721G articulated wheel loader for the Streets Division. Were there any questions about that?
I just wanted to confirm with somebody that it was gonna be delivered in time for snow.
I think it's the idea of doing it on first reading.
So that they have an
So they
eye on
have-
one,
yeah.
that they just go and put the money
Yeah.
down. Thank you.
And then resolution 188, a resolution proclaiming October 20th to 26th National Lead Poisoning Prevention Week. Resolution 189, authorizing the mayor to execute an amendment to a professional services agreement with Safe Built.
And everyone should have gotten this afternoon the email I sent with the
Yeah.
additional memo.
Thanks, Abby.
Any questions about that?
So the money, where'd they say the funds are coming from on the memo? I haven't been, I'm sorry, Eddie.
That's okay, I'll pull it up. I should know that off the top of my head, but I didn't have time to read it fully. Oops, that's not right. Bill, do you
Says it's
have
already budgeted,
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it says. It's already built. It sure
so it's gonna
is.
be out of the building
Yeah.
department budget.
Yeah, Bill, yeah.
And do we know, I'm sorry, is that okay?
No, please.
Continue. What services are requiring that we continue to use Safe Built? Does anybody, are we short inspectors or?
Yeah, it says the process is underway. They've hired the commissioner and 2 permit technicians, but they have, and have offers to multiple other building inspectors. They just haven't been able to fill it.
So we're probably looking at getting those older buildings inspected for their facades,
I would
perhaps?
imagine I'm not.
Mr. President.
Please.
I'm sorry for not looking too closely at this. We got this just this afternoon. Is this, am I understanding correctly, that this is just getting us through the end of the year?
Yep, that's what the memo states, to make sure that gap while they're hiring, they do, there's no gap in the inspections and those processes through the end of the year. Yeah, that's
Do
what that
we-
memo spells out.
Do we happen to know, is there an expectation that they'll need Safe Built beyond the end of this year? Or is this sunsetting the relationship?
I think it is sunsetting, but the sunset date, my guess is not necessarily December 31st. But I think that, yeah, the estimate was, and I think this is a point the council president raised earlier, that the not to exceed for this amendment would be up to $100,000. So it's gonna cross 50, which means it's in council's wheelhouse at that point. But the estimate is not to exceed 100 through the end of this year. I don't have anything beyond that, but it's reasonable to ask that question prior to that time.
Eric McGraw. This
Oh.
is the central contract, yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
I looked around earlier, you're not there.
So yeah, we don't imagine that this will even approach the previous billings because there were a confluence of conditions where we were trying to hire staff that really bumped up the cost. So this is really just for the types of services that we don't have staff for currently, like plans review, which we're probably always gonna be contracted out. So we just think it's since the $150,000, we need to get your approval, but we don't intend to have it cost a lot more.
Correct that the estimate was not more than 100 this year. And is it also fair that it may need to be extended beyond the end of this year, but that you would expect that the cost would continue to diminish?
Yeah, as we continue to hire people, as we continue to build out that department. So it's a diminishing request.
All right, resolution 190, this is, the next two are for first reading
We
only.
need to add this one to first readings.
Oh,
For
yep,
consideration.
you know that? Okay.
Take one, pass it around.
Yeah. So this is a resolution we knew about that might come about, they did this morning. Resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Seagrave Fire Apparatus LLC for the purchase of one new Seagrave model Marauder pumper and related equipment for the fire department. See the chief's here. Did you want to add anything to?
I just came in case anybody had any questions and to thank you all from the department for putting this on quickly. We were kind of under time constraints, which is not how we like to live, but they kind of have us by the back of the neck right now, so.
You kind of found something at the last minute, is that
Well,
basically?
we've been working with these people for quite some time. They made our last pumper and we wanted it to be just like that so that we have continuity between the vehicles and the people, training and everything. And it was just a matter of, we were waiting on the design because the EPA implemented some new regulations for the exhaust has to go through a new component before it can be spit out into the atmosphere again, and that came after we were already in the middle of a design, so figured it out, they worked it out, so.
Okay, so we knew, we were already tracking this particular one, but just to be compliant, we had to wait until it was, okay,
Right.
go ahead.
I knew about the pumper, I was excited. Everything going smooth with the ambulance?
So we have a company that is going to produce both of our ambulances.
192.
And they did kind of hit us with a curveball. One is gonna get pushed back into third quarter of 2026, which is fine. You know, these things take time. Because we're gonna be getting one hopefully this next year quickly, if not late.
Good news.
Yes, we need it.
What's the number on this?
192.
Yeah, this is 190.
192.
192.
That's first reading only, or?
No, we'll do for, oh,
Mr. President, this is under the Houston Galveston area, whatever, the Cooperative Purchasing Association, which was added to the codified ordinances 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay. All right, now we'll move on to first reading only. 190 is an ordinance enacting section 331.46 of the codified ordinance entitled driving while texting. I certainly remember this from past years. Of course, none of us do that. 191 is a resolution increasing the compensation for the clerk of council, who's been doing a lot of postgraduate work. And we do appreciate that. Any questions about that? Yes.
Just sorry, Eddie, we couldn't include the Cadillac this year.
Rats. Maybe next time.
All right, so second readings, we've got several. 154 is a resolution confirming the mayor's appointment of Corey Clark to the Community Improvement Corporation. 155 is confirming India Birdsong. And that's also to the Community Improvement Corporation. And then 170 is a resolution confirming the mayor's appointment to the Lead Safe Advisory Board. That's Audrey Hudak. 171 is Morgan McKay. And back to the, I don't know why these got a little out of order, but that's okay. We're not gonna dock your new pay raise, but 172.
Well, I think 172 is introduced after the other one, that's
Oh, okay. Is back to the Community Improvement Corporation, and that's the appointment of William Fidel. Any questions on any of them? We read them last 3 weeks ago, I guess it would be now. And then finally, Resolution 181, a resolution encouraging Heights Libraries to work toward a solution that preserves the Peace Campus building. Councilman Petrus, I know you made a couple of changes to this.
There was one change
One change.
since we last discussed this, since the first reading, and that is in section 4. So there is an addition, and I'm sorry, I intended to print a red line so that we would all see it, but it says at the end of it, in order to provide time and stability for a productive search for a solution, encourages Heights Libraries to consider extending the leases of current tenants. But the document is otherwise the same.
So thank you for the work that you and Councilor Kuda did on this. Thank you.
That's actually Mr. Petrus.
Petrus. Mr. Petrus.
He gets,
You too,
he
you
gets,
too.
he gets 95% of the credit.
Okay, no more discussion on that. All right, that's actually the last piece of legislation, so let me go back to the. The next item on the agenda is an ARPA update. So I'm gonna turn that over to our law director. Is there anything to update council on?
We, from the law perspective, we're continuing to work with the procurement processes and contracts and things of that nature to keep all the things that we talked about last week, whenever that was. It seems like we talk about this frequently, moving. And in addition, we will have legislation coming to council, as we had said, in October, November. I think possibly as early as the 21st of October, potentially if there's a special meeting between the 21st and the first meeting in November. That's another possible target date. That would have to do with some adjustments to revenue replacement, which are yet to be worked out, to the and put on the page. Appropriations for programs that would be in excess of $50,000, but not yet distilled to writing. The potential additional adjustments for Keene and Dennison Park improvements and contracts for those projects. So that would be things like potentially seeding, the turf project, et cetera. And then the expanded nonprofit scopes, which you've seen, but I think there's still a little bit in flux there. I think that same timetable, though, is when we would anticipate legislation for those.
So we have a decision to make, council, on the unencumbered funds, are the ones that
The changes.
the changes that the administration has, at least they're promoting the idea that we should, here's some options for the money that we're reassigning, the ARPA funds that we're gonna reassign.
Clarify that, because when I asked in the last meeting, Acting Director Schuster said that all the money had been allocated or obligated, there wasn't any unencumbered balance left, so what are we talking about?
Actually, I misspoke. I don't mean unencumbered, I mean the
The reallocation.
reallocation.
Reassigned?
Yeah, the reallocation, I mean, we haven't made that decision yet, and our goal is still to finish this off this month. Which means that we're going to need the legislation that does all the revenue replacement. That would be kind of one bucket, if you will, and then the individual contracts and finish those off. And if we did all of that at the next meeting, which would be October 21st,
Right.
we'd have to do it on first reading for passage.
Right, and so one of the reasons I mentioned a possible special meeting is because I heard the rumor that there could be something. And of course, that's not unprecedented. But I'm not gonna be here on the 21st, and Chris Heltzel is not gonna be here on the 21st. I'm gonna be on vacation, he's gonna be at an ADA training seminar. So to the extent that it would be helpful for us to be here when you initially read that, that night wouldn't work for that purpose.
Well, then I would ask, is everybody willing to, I was thinking of another date that would be possible. So you have a committee meeting on the 28th. Is that 5 o'clock? It's the administrative service. 6?
6.
So we could do after.
Would the rest of council, so that's administrative services. Would the rest of council be willing to meet right after that if
Sorry, which day?
we needed
The
to?
28th.
The 28th.
I personally am available.
Admin services is at 6?
And when is everybody comfortable with making this decision about reallocation? We'd have to, do we have to do that as a resolution?
Yes.
Or we can't just make a motion at the table, right? Yeah.
Do we need to have a deeper discussion on these 3 nonprofits where the scope has changed from the original submission and what we approved?
I would say if you have any questions, to email them to Chris. And then we'll bring it back up on the 21st.
So does that mean that everyone is comfortable with those proposed
Well, that's, I guess, what you guys are really
changes?
trying to figure out.
You know, until I hear from council, I don't know. I mean, for myself, go ahead.
These are the ones that were kind of being renegotiated, like Heights Arts, is that
Yeah,
those
Heights
that you're
Arts.
talking about?
Or,
Well,
no,
there's Artful Ohio, Building Heights, and
And
Reaching
Reaching
Heights. It's the subject of an email that we received. Was that last Friday?
Go ahead.
I think they would be helpful if we had a chance to talk with staff about them, to hear whether they have like any recommendations. But I would be interested at some point in having a discussion about them, whether that's today or a different day.
Yes,
And just to add in, that Heights Arts also will be provided.
yes, they just haven't, it wasn't in that email. They are
So
providing
there's a fourth
they'll be providing a
a
new
new scope.
new scope.
scope of work, okay. All right, so go ahead.
There is one piece of information that I'm hoping to get on the environmental sustainability and possibly any recyclable of the turf that's gonna be pulled up. Alice Dresko sent us that email, and so, and Brian, Mr. Iorio had said that probably wouldn't have an answer today, but if I could get some kind of information about how it's gonna be laid down, all the preparation that goes into it and the kinds of things that she brought up, that I'd really appreciate that.
So we did reach out to the mayor's office in Parks and Rec. But that deserves probably their direct response to you.
Right,
All right,
because that's a specific question, I don't know if was answered about how things are laid.
thank you.
All right, so we should probably be prepared to make a decision on the 21st about reallocation and then or at least finish that discussion and then send that over to the law department so that on the 28th we can pass this. I should say, we should vote on it.
Am I hearing that we'll discuss those three on the 21st? Is that the?
And hopefully,
So I guess a question for the law department is that if we discuss it on the 21st, does that give the law department enough time to work with the nonprofits to have something before us on the 28th?
fair question.
I think so, yeah. Now, again, and I can follow up with Chris further tomorrow, I won't be here that whole week. But I think that a lot of that is sort of largely ready with the finalization of the scopes, which have changed several times. So if those are determined and locked, then I think the rest of it is not real time consuming.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if you might need more time and we should think about trying to meet sooner than the 21st, but if that works, then that's good. Thank you.
And again, the one thing that night would be, we can put materials together in advance. We can talk with the president, vice president in the bi-weekly or whatever it is, council leadership meeting. But we won't be here that night. Okay.
Oh,
And
that-
that gets it done by the 31st of October.
Yeah. And speaking of our bi-weekly meeting, I would need to do that Friday instead of Thursday this week. Is that, because you and I are
Me
both.
too, right?
Yeah, we'll both be in a different meeting on Thursday.
Let's see.
Not that we have to do our
Yeah, we can-
scheduling right this minute,
Yeah,
but
I'll follow up with you. I do have something on Friday.
Just let me know.
Yeah.
We'll work around it.
Alright. So we'll move on to the next agenda item, framework for future council discussions. Councilman Posh, would I be putting you on the spot to kind of help move this forward?
You always put me on the spot. Got some handouts. I hope everybody has already reviewed these. I'm certainly not gonna go over right now since they've been in packets multiple times, if you just pass that out for everybody. So this is an email that I sent to Tony that sort of lays out a process to just have a conversation amongst ourselves. To kind of talk through, I think starting with grievances. Some of us have repeatedly brought up concerns about maybe being felt left out. I just think it's important that we as a council can work better if we can formulate a series of expectations that we have for each other, as well as how we work with other people, such as the administration. But I think first we need to kind of figure out how we work together. I'm proposing an initial meeting that we can schedule in the near future. Have all of us present. Tony, you are the president. Someone's gonna have to lead the meeting, that would be you, unless you'd wanna defer it to somebody else. I don't wanna have a moderator there. I think this is work that I think we should do with ourselves and figure that out. But I've sort of laid down, call it some rules that we all would have to follow, like how much time we have to talk, so we can't grandstand. Give us enough time to maybe reflect on what other people have said and respond to that. I think the process is pretty self-explanatory. in here. I'm open for any suggestion that anybody has. What I'm asking for is a meeting that we can implement this or some amended version of this.
Mr. President,
Yes,
I definitely would have looked forward to this conversation. The only issue I have is part 3. And I wanted to make sure that council saw that. For me, this conversation would seem like a tremendous waste of time if I have to get agreement from someone else at this table before something is called an official issue. So I don't see the point of me engaging in this conversation. Because based on the feedback that I've given multiple members of this council in the past over the last 2 years, it's clear that there's been a divide in terms of understanding and agreement about some of the issues that I have on this council. And the fact that I have to come to that table and find one of you all to agree with me before that can even be introduced or discussed or considered an official issue, I just don't see that happening. We haven't been able to agree on processes, procedures, how I view representation on this council, even our selection processes. It's just something that I've been an other on this council. So it put me in a position where I have to find a non-existent person on this council to agree with many of the issues that I have aired that is clear that this council does not agree with. So I don't see the time, me investing this time as being fruitful for me at this point, because I'd have to find someone else to agree before it's even admitted to be a definitive issue for this council. And that's just not gonna happen in my context, just based on who's on this council.
No, I'm not sure I agree with that, actually. You've used the term left out multiple times. Maybe other people feel the same way.
Well, the last time I said this at the last council meeting, I was told that if I was nicer to people, they wouldn't be side meetings around me. And that's absurd to me, that people think that's an excuse to have any meetings on the side. So, and if we're gonna have an honest conversation about this, that's fine. My only other concern is I will not have a conversation about this council and how we work together and include the administration at the same time. That is a complete distraction for me. I don't have a problem having that conversation, but mixing the two together is problematic. I don't want to sit at this table knowing that there's issues that we haven't discussed as a council, and I'm hearing all these things that we want to make adjustments for the administration. So I would want to make sure that any issues we have as a council are absolutely heard and separated, as you discussed first, before we decide to have any further discussions about how we're going to move forward together. But I haven't, just based on the experience I've had, seen agreement on any of the issues that I've raised prior on this council. I'm not quite sure how they would ever make a definitive list. And so that was my only concern with part 3.
well, one of the things, I just want to be clear on this. I thought you wanted the kind of within council meetings to be separate from the discussion about how we relate with the administration.
I think it's separate.
Yeah, so Councilman Maddox, I don't quite understand what you're saying. If he's
I'm saying I don't, I'm saying the.
Let me finish what I was saying, because you conflated those two things as if that was the plan. And he's saying that's not the plan. These are two separate plans.
And I'm stating that based on how we read this, it was one discussion about both on this. It was clarified now. And when we've discussed this prior twice, it was also discussed that we would discuss them both at the same time, so that I'm very clear.
That's not what
I'm
I
not
heard.
conflating anything. That's how I heard what I heard.
Okay.
But that there are two issues here. So again, that's one issue. My separate issue is what happens if I have legitimate issues at this table and I don't have anyone else that agrees with those? They're shelved and we're back where we are. So again, my context has shown historically on this council that there's been zero agreement about any issue that I've raised on this council. So I'm just curious about how I'm supposed to move forward if I feel like there's a strongly legitimate issue on this council that the other 6 of you disagree with. Where do I go with that? Because that has been my experience. It's not something I think is gonna happen. It has continued to happen the last 2 years.
I mean, here's what, first of all, I think city council by its very nature requires consensus, but it's also, I think we all know going in that we could be in the minority on any vote. I've been on the minority on votes. That's just something that happens. But the other thing is, and I don't want to speak for you, but I think where you're headed is, at least be open to the possibility that something might be said in these discussions that might change your mind about something. You have to go into this at least open to that idea that, I'm not saying it will happen, but
Maybe I'll give you some context, maybe this will help. I have sat in meetings and folks have looked me in the face and said that there have not been side meetings out of here on committees that I'm on. That is clearly not true. The committees that I'm on have met and had full conversations about topics on those committees. That is not an agreement that this council has that has happened. So what do I do with that issue when I bring it up to this council and I say, I do not want any other committee members on the committee I'm sitting on to have side conversations about those subjects on those committees when they're telling me that that didn't happen and these things aren't happening. So that issue doesn't go on the wall, but it's a legitimate issue. That's the example. So what do I do in a situation like that?
I think
Can I answer
we'll
that?
find that out.
I think that's a great thing to bring up.
I did,
When-
and no one at this table agreed. I've
Yeah,
been
but
bringing
we've
it up
never-
for the last 3 weeks, so that's my
Yeah,
point.
but we've never really had an opportunity to really talk through it, okay?
I strongly disagree with that. I think there's been plenty of time for this council to explain to me what that was if they wanted to, but that's just me. I mean, I've stated how I felt about it and I've gotten zero feedback or explanation. And housing is meeting again tomorrow, and I'm still wondering if I'm gonna continue to show up to these meetings because of those conversations that I've had. No one on the housing committee has had a conversation with me about that. And there's been ample time to have conversations about what was and was not discussed. I'm still walking into a meeting feeling like I'm going blind. So when does that happen? When no one feels like these things have actually happened, even though I've looked at the minutes. That's my problem. I don't wanna do entertainment. I don't go in circles with people. I try to just be as straight as I can. So if we're going to have a conversation about these things, I just don't want anyone telling me these things did not happen and I'm looking there. Because if I'm gonna be an other at this table, then it's pointless to me. If there are legitimate issues that I'm raising, and again, I have to find someone else at this table to agree with those issues, and there isn't any. So I'm not gonna waste my time if they're not gonna be considered legitimate issues. That is a legitimate issue. And I'm asking right now, is there anyone else at this table that agrees with that? If not, it's not gonna make this list according to part 3. So I'm asking right now, that is a legitimate issue for me. Is there anyone else at this table that agrees that that should not be happening and that is a legitimate issue? My committee met, 2 people out of my committee have had a meeting, discussed topics about my committee outside of my presence, and that's an issue. No one else agrees that that has happened, so what do I do with that? How do I move forward with my colleagues in a meeting, showing up knowing that these conversations have happened already? How's that resolved through this process, when no one even agrees that it happened, but me?
I mean,
Again, it's a waste of my time. If I have to have someone else in agreement before someone's official issue for us to say, hey, we're gonna make some kind of process or procedure. There's never gonna be a process or procedure for these side meetings if no one agrees that they even happened. That's my point.
Go ahead.
Why don't we just edit that? And I don't believe it should require another council member to agree with Member Maddox that it's an issue for us to have a discussion on it. If he believes it's an issue, then I think it is worthy of our having a discussion on it, and that will solve this
I'm good
issue
with
or
that.
problem.
I'm good with that.
I didn't realize it was that easily resolved.
I mean, part of this issue is trying to find ways that we can work together and make decisions just like this.
Yeah. Is that good with you?
Fine with me. I don't want something not to be discussed because I'm the only one with an issue here and it's moved on and say, well, it's not a council issue because that's problematic for me. And I can give very severe examples over the last 2 years how that's problematic. It opens up the door for other things. And so I just wanna make sure we're gonna have a conversation that is open, is transparent, and I'm not looking for help because I don't need any in this room. But if I'm gonna speak for myself, I wanna make sure that that voice holds weight. And if I have to get support from other people who may not see it my way, I'm not gonna waste my time with this conversation because it means I have to bring my opinion and form it around other people's to even get it discussed. And I'm not gonna water down my experiences at this table to get agreement. So I just wanna make sure that this is gonna be open and honest. So I'm fine with that change. I just did not like the fact that I had to get agreement with someone else at the table that I have issues, because that's gonna be close to impossible for me.
So would you like to pick a date? Is that where we're at?
Or you want me to send a doodle poll?
I think you do a doodle poll. I think we're needing about an hour and a half to 2 hours and something like this. I don't think you can do it in an hour.
Yeah.
Just some food for thought. I think that so that we can touch on the things that as many folks have issues with as possible, might be worth prioritizing the things that have, more people in agreement. Certainly, we want to be able to air everything, but, maybe the highest priority ones are the ones that we, maybe start with first, something like that. Just throwing that out there as an idea.
Give me an example of what you mean, like But-
if, let's say 6 of 7 council members say, you know, we're sick of these chairs in here, which I think we all are, then maybe that's something that we want to, you know, have earlier in the discussion.
Oh, you're just saying, so we determine that, you're saying, determine that early on.
I think we come in then knowing what are our high priorities. I mean, it's gonna take some homework, I think, when we come in here. We certainly understand about one of your key issues.
That apparently, according to his suggestion, would be never discussed or completely the
I did
bottom
not
of the
say
list. That's,
You mean the chairs. You come in,
I don't think he needs.
I know you don't mean that. I mean, you come in with your most important things first.
I just wanna make it clear, I'm not playing any games with this council. So if I'm gonna have this discussion, and by your definition, anything that I have an issue with could either never be discussed or discussed hours or days later, don't think I'm not gonna say anything. That's the reason we're doing it this way. And that's all I can tell you. I've been very honest with you already. I have no patience left for any foolishness at all. I wanna have an open dialogue and discussion, but if that means that someone's gonna try to silence what I wanna talk about, and meanwhile we talk about everything else, that's never gonna happen. You might as well wait until another election. So that's all I'm saying. I wanna have an open, transparent conversation, and I do not want games. And I don't wanna walk into the room feeling like conversations have already happened, or I'm gonna say something. That's all I can say about it. It's continued, and I'm fed up. I just am. I'm fed up. It's continued to happen, and I'm tired of walking in here and seeing stuff already happen. So if this is what we're gonna do, let's agree on it openly, but we're gonna hold ourselves to this thing.
I would like to say,
Oh, yeah, please.
I'm agreeable to this if we all commit to honest conversation and that we are all open to listening to each other. And that if we have an accusation to make, we come with a substantive piece of fact.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons why things, well, I don't wanna say too much now. I mean, we'll, you know, we're doing this for, you know, we're gonna set aside some time to deal with this, and I don't wanna like tangentially kind of dance around issues right now. So we'll do a doodle poll, and if you could indulge me just for a minute, we also need to talk about, we need a doodle poll for a charter review commission meeting as well. Not trying to overwhelm anybody, but you know, if we don't do this once a month, we're gonna be, you know, it's gonna pile up. It's a big undertaking, which I think we're doing fine on, but we'll only be doing fine on it if we keep at it, you know, every month. Does anybody have any objections to, are you looking at, I mean, I think next month would be tough for your, I should call it yours, because we're all agreeing to.
You mean this month, October?
I don't think we
Well-
can do this month. I'd leave it to you guys, know what the overall schedule is. We got budget issues, we got a lot of things. I think that takes priority over this, but it's all important.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, we have a lot of budget meetings scheduled for November. And we probably wanna continue with our charter review also in November. And I'm just trying to figure out what month you would, were you thinking this, you were not thinking later this month?
No, certainly not this month.
Okay,
Maybe not even November.
December.
Maybe
I can put out-
maybe December?
Yeah, I mean, you guys have a better handle on the budget meetings than I have this before. So, and that's more important, I get that.
And the CRC is bucket one, correct? Still on bucket one.
Yeah.
Working.
So even though we'll be voting on the budget in December, I don't know that in particular, I mean, you know, let's cross our fingers, but I don't think that's necessarily particularly time consuming. So maybe we could look at, I would say, the first half of the month for this particular
It's fair enough.
framework for future council discussions. Okay. And then lastly, discussion and updates on projects for committee reports.
We wanted to ask people if they wanted to, during their committee report, to give updates on projects that were going on.
Oh, right. Yeah, I sent everybody an email asking if there was any, when we look at all of our past legislation that we've passed, sometimes after we passed it, we don't really know the status. So I was asking you all as committee chairs if you thought it would be worthwhile, and would you be willing to contact your corresponding administrative chair, director, to give a progress report on something that was passed that maybe initially went through your committee. Like I'll just give you for instance, people constantly ask me what's going on with the elevators and the parking garages or something like that, So I'm talking about, and it could be anything though.
I mean, like in the case of the parking garages and the elevators, those are things that I am also interested in. And I mean, I think that it's more appropriate for something like that to be in like the city administrator's report, something like that. I wish that we could get updates on that as well. I don't want the public to think that I am in some way responsible for a delay in elevators being repaired when I am just as eager to know what is happening with these things.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this isn't just about blame, it's just about keeping up. I suppose I could ask the city administrator at my weekly meetings with the mayor, could you report on X, Y, and Z? I mean, we could do it that way, but I don't really feel it's my place to say what I think the city administrator ought to report on. I mean, I could ask. I guess I don't think Administrator Williams would object to me asking, but I don't know if that's the way to go.
I do think it's an expectation of council to have a couple key things that we get reported back on. These are the things that we're interested in. These are the things we need to have regular updates on. And, part of the things I'm trying to figure out, and part of, waking back to the conversation about our expectations, is does this happen in the meetings that you have with the mayor and his executive staff? And, there's a checklist that comes back to us. What is the expectation of how we get this kind of information? We don't want to bog things down by, having people, run away. We don't want to have to continue prompting for things and trying to get stuff back. But it seems to me that there needs to be a pretty standard list of things that are important to all of us that we should be getting information on a regular basis. And just everybody understands that. And then maybe some special things.
And I understand what you're saying your expectation is, and I've asked Addie kind of recently to, when we pass legislation, to give us a reminder within a few months to make sure that we, if we forget to ask, that she remember. But my question is, what's the vehicle? I could bring stuff up in a private meeting with the mayor and the city administrator, but what's the vehicle to report this to the public, I guess? Because that's, whether we ask a question privately is one thing and get an answer, and it's another thing as to whether we're adequately informing the public on the progress of these.
You do have a piece of an issue on the city administrator's report. After that, it says departmental reports.
Yeah,
So is that the vehicle that you can be used, where if one of us raises a question about a department that perhaps is not on our committee, that perhaps that director could be invited to the council meeting?
And I have done that.
Yeah.
And some of the time, the mayor has allowed the director to come to the council meeting and report on it. I'd like to walk out of here with some direction from you all about how you think this ought to happen. I'm fine with asking the city administrator to, you guys could email me. I could say, here are the things that council would like to hear from you, and then I could get a yes or no on that. Or, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I think it's real clear. I mean, if you look at city council agendas, citywide, not city, regional wide, there's generally some type of vehicle where council is updated on certain things on a very regular basis. We have 2 items in our agenda that are very rarely used. One is the city administrator's report, and the other one is the departmental reports. It's a way of feeding information back to council and making it public. And I think we need to try to find a way of working with our city administration on how we can make those more beneficial for us and for the public.
Well, I'll bring that up tomorrow in our meeting with the mayor at noon tomorrow. And certainly seek the advice of both the city administrator and the mayor. Go ahead.
Just from my understanding, because I know there's clearly a communication gap, how many of us are meeting with the mayor? Is it still just you and Councilwoman Russell and me?
Correct. Well, I mean, the weekly meetings, the leadership meetings are with just the leadership. But I think that the others have all been invited to.
Okay.
I met with the mayor last week.
Okay, I'm just curious,
Is
because I know that's another way we get this information or ask some of these and bringing these reportings and things. So I was just curious if there's an information silo and that's the issue. So I was just trying to figure this out.
Well, but see, that's a completely different issue because at least that's not the issue I'm raising, is how well informed his council is. I'm thinking we don't particularly inform the public that well about, that's what I'm talking about. I mean, so, all right. So I'll bring that up tomorrow, and I'll give you all feedback on the best vehicle to get this type of information back to the public. And we're running a little bit late, so I'm gonna adjourn the meeting and we're gonna head over to Council Chambers. Thank you.